Off you go then.
Just 1 second.
Okay, I'll introduce the show.
Uh,
It's us
I,
again. This week we're talking about Batman, or should I say, Batman?
I'm Batman.
Indeed. Um, Matthew and David will show up eventually. Zachary, what are your earliest memories of Batman? Actually, before you answer that, can I just say that should be treated more like a podcast than a viewing thing. It's something you download the audio to it, stick it on your MP3, and then listen to it on your daily run or whatever, or listen to it while you're doing the laundry or your homework or whatever. It's not to be sat down and watched as such so much as it is to be listened to. So it should be treated more like a radio show with a visual interface, I guess. Now that I've got that out
yeah,
of the way,
possibly. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Oh, earliest memories of Batman. Well, I grew up in the '90s, so I grew up watching Batman the animated series,
Hmm.
and so there was that. But at the same time, my dad was a huge Batman fan.
Hmm.
So when Batman Forever came out in theaters, we went and saw it, and then when Batman and Robin came out in theaters, we also went and saw that. But I do remember very specifically, I grew up, and because my dad was a huge fan of Batman and animation, we actually had Batman Mask of the Phantasm on VHS. So I actually grew like when a lot of people are like, oh my god, have you seen Batman and Robin? Oh, and they're going blah 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 like blah blah blah. Oh my god, it's so amazing. Which we all turned to adults and basically realized, wow, that movie was god awful.
Hmm.
But I was just like, well, I watched Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. What's that? I'm like, really,
Hmm.
really?
I
Um,
believe that actually did get a theatrical release in some cities in the US.
yes, it did. It was just that it was released on the same weekend as Batman Forever.
So yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
And it was in continuity with the animated series.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it was the better of the two. Given a choice between Batman Forever and Mask of the Phantasm, I'd pick Mask of the Phantasm.
I've only seen it once, and that's when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
When it first came out, and we went and hired it. Me and a friend and my sister sat down and watched it. But they're
Mm-hmm.
horrible people to watch a movie with because they think watching a movie is about listening to them talk.
Ah,
Like their sole focus on a movie is, oh, well, we're watching this movie, so obviously you want to listen to me talk.
right.
Which no, I don't. Uh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen. I don't remember enjoying it that much, but I'm not sure if my lack of enjoyment was because I didn't think the film was very good, or it's because of my overall experience relating to it wasn't that good, and I was projecting that onto the film. So
Yeah.
I will have to get a. I'm sure there's probably a 1080p version of it floating around somewhere.
Probably. I mean, it is. I think they did release it on DVD, and I'm pretty sure someone has uploaded it at least once or twice to YouTube. So,
Right, and that Mask of the Phantasm slots in chronologically somewhere with the animated series.
yes.
Are there not a couple of other films that also do the same?
There was a direct-to-video movie released called Batman Sub-Zero, where he actually fought Mister Freeze.
Hmm. And that again was in
And
the
then there,
animated series universe.
yeah, and then there was one that was a Batman Beyond movie,
Uh-huh.
which was Batman Return of the Joker.
Batman Beyond, isn't that the futuristic Batman
Yes.
in like the year 2050 something?
Yeah, it's basically 30, 40 years, actually 40 years into the future, and Gotham City is basically still the glorious cesspool that it was, except now all the street gangs are doing all the hip new drugs and all the techno cyberpunk wear, and like they jack into the net, and it's basically William Gibson presents Batman.
Yeah, and it was not like an elderly Bruce Wayne his mentor.
Yes, Bruce Wayne basically retired because he was no longer fit to be Batman,
Uh-huh.
and he took on a young teenager named Terry McGinnis as his protege. And so they brought back some old Batman villains. They actually had a really really depressing episode with Mister Freeze. Um, you found out what happened to Barbara Gordon.
She died?
She became police commissioner.
Oh, okay. So she was Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, because they actually did do a scene where basically Terry goes back to the Batcave, and all of a sudden Commissioner Gordon walks. The commissioner walks in, and they just referred to her as the commissioner.
Hmm.
Except she had like a different last name because she was married, and basically walks in like, wow, this brings back memories. And Terry's freaking out. He's just like, grab him in my mask, and Bruce is just sitting there. It's all right, Terry. What do you mean? She's here. And she walks over to the Batgirl costume from the animated series and goes, wow, you patched up the bullet holes pretty nicely, Bruce.
Hmm.
And basically just goes, it's been a long time, Barbara. And I remember as a kid, that was the coolest thing. That was one of the coolest things ever because I was just like, wait, that's Batgirl? Oh my god!
Yeah. Excuse me for yawning. Recently, I've started college. Recently, I've been forcing myself to get out of bed earlier than usual to make it to
Ah,
time. So that's why I'm yawning. I'm not bored with you. I'm yawning because I'm genuinely tired.
oh,
So
that was
Batman.
me. That would have been me last week if I was here. I was sitting there literally like this. Oh.
Oh, so Batman Beyond is
Hmm.
canon with the animated series universe.
Yes.
Oh, I kind of want to get my hands on it. I'm sure there's a DVD box set somewhere of Batman the animated series, all 5 seasons or whatever, however many seasons.
Yeah. And it was,
Uh,
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, I have seen it somewhere, and someone put like it's the complete Batman the animated series or something, and it's pretty good.
yeah,
Uh,
I have a friend that just as the new season for that was announced back in the day, and it was like the last season, we're announcing one more season. This is the last season. This is going to be it.
mhm.
He said, I can guarantee you I've seen every episode of this cartoon, which he would have up to the recent season. But to this
Mhm.
day, I'm pretty sure he may have caught up with it since. I'm like, no, you haven't, because that is a new season. And he was
Yeah.
um, unaware of it. Greetings, Matthew. Oh. Anyway, my earliest memories of Batman, having grown up in the 80s, were of television reruns of the Adam West Burt Ward. Very
Oh God.
na 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 Batman. As a child, I couldn't see the silliness and camp, and I thought, oh, it's Batman, it's great. It was very, bright colors, silly jokes that went completely over my head because I was a child. I just like, Batman solving crimes and whatnot. Then along comes a director by the name of Tim Burton, and it's a big deal
Mm.
because a comedian, an actor famous for his comedy roles, is donning the garb of the Batman. That was, of course, Michael Keaton. And when this film came out, it was a big deal because it was a new Batman and a new take on the Batman franchise. And as a kid, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I was expecting, or rather what I was hoping for, is that it would be the 60s version, except a serious version of that. And
Ah.
it was dark and it was broody and it was all mysterious, and I personally thought it was quite boring. To this day, when I watch it, like, I'm not a huge fan of that film. Because it's great that it shows everything. It shows the setup, it shows the Joker, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
But, eh. Um, what was the second one? Batman Returns. I enjoyed that much more. because you had Catwoman, the
Mhm.
Penguin. Oh, Catwoman. That was it, wasn't it? Catwoman. I think that was the first superhero movie to do dual villains. And again, as much as
Yeah.
the media raved about Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, I personally wasn't that big of a fan of her portrayal. Then, of course, the reins get handed over to Joel Schumacher, who completely roots the franchise up its own arse. With Batman Forever, I didn't mind that so much, and the reason he made it look the way it looked is in his mind, it's a comic book, so that is kind of what it basically was, a more serious version of the '60s TV series. But I probably think Batman Forever. Well, I'm not
Mhm.
saying it's necessarily good. It's my personal favorite out of those four films. And I thought Jim Carrey did great as the Riddler. Apparently, the role was open for Robin Williams, but he ummed and ahed about it, and he never got back to it. And Jim Carrey was massively flavor of the month at this time. So, okay, we're getting Jim Carrey. He's in. He said yes. I personally
Mhm.
thought he did a great job.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way when I remember every to this day whenever people say like, "Oh, the Riddler," I can't help but picture his shit-eating grin.
Mhm.
Uh,
Have you caught up with the new series Gotham?
I've seen the pilot, but it airs on a night when I'm usually doing a lot of work. So
Uh, okay, so that's enough though. What did you think of the pilot? So you saw the full 45 minutes or hour? I'm guessing
I
it's an hour.
saw I came in like 10 minutes into it, so I didn't see the setup. Well, my
Oh, this,
dad had, so he gave me the setup. But what I saw was I really liked Detective Bullock because I liked him in the animated series,
mhm. This is
and
the
I
first
like
time.
how. Hmm?
This is the first time he's been realized in live action.
Wow,
You were
that's
saying,
and I mean I really like his character because to me he was always the true goth. Like Gordon was sort of a goody two shoe, like the Boy Scout.
yeah,
Whereas to me, Bullock was actually the perfect Gotham cop because he knew the city was messed up. He knew there was no possible chance of salvaging any. That yes, I'm saving people's lives by being a detective, but what good is this really going to do in the grand scheme of things? Because for every person I save, another three people are going to get shot tomorrow in some kind of robbery.
yeah. Just quickly going back to various animated series, there's been so many Batman movies. There's one here I'll watch soon, Batman Assault on Arkham, which I think is based on the video games. But there's so many that I'm not sure which movies go in which universes, or if they're 100% standalone, or yeah, I got confused. So many started
Yeah.
coming out, and independent one, sorry, film Batman animated films that were independent of the animated series started coming out while the series was still running, and that really confused me.
Hmm.
Batman Year One was very good, however. Anyway, we'll let Matty talk now about his earliest memories of the Batman.
The Batman.
No, 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 the Batman.
No, that's not how you say it. The Batman. That's better, isn't it? I my only knowledge of Batman and most of the DC universe was restrained to the Tim Burton movies. That's it. I didn't watch the cartoon with Mark Hamill that everyone raves about. I wasn't even aware that it was originally a comic book, which is a bit embarrassing. So my entire perception of Batman's universe is colored by, as you guys were saying, those early Tim Burton films. Probably more so the ones with Michael Keaton.
Hmm.
I thought Val Kilmer was hilariously bad. Um, so I don't, I don't know. It was a big event, but it was like the Marvel of our day. You know, everybody went, whether you cared or not. You went because it was Batman, and there was special effects and prosthetics and action and just a little bit of fun, but a little bit of grit as well. Which is, I mean, everyone's putting the Marvel universe movies on a pillar at the moment, but they're, in their essence and in their role in the modern cinema landscape, they're playing the same part that Tim Burton's Batman series did in the 90s. There's really not a lot of difference except for the cultural cliches are different. Obviously, the action sequences are much more video game-esque as opposed to, well, we can't have him flying through the air on the back of a giant Martian, so we'll just have to put him on the ground kicking the Martian in the nuts, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think history will view the Batman series of the 90s and the modern Marvel universe as being concurrent. Because really, they're only a decade apart. It's not a lot of time. I didn't like the grittier movies. Who made those? With
Christopher Nolan.
Thank you. And I never could sit through the cartoon. I don't know why. I don't think when I first viewed the cartoon that everyone raves about, I didn't realize it was as good as it was, and therefore I only sat through 5 minutes and went, fair, and moved on. Maybe, in 5 years when I've got some time, I might review it. And that's it. I've read one Batman graphic novel, and it was absolutely fantastic, and I have absolutely no idea how it came into my possession.
Which one?
It wasn't the big one where Bane breaks his back, but the Joker does kick the bananas out of him. And I've absolutely no idea of any other reference points to hunt it down. But I just remember that, yeah, he gets the bananas beaten out of him, and it was just so moody and dark, and I thought, oh, this is great, I like this. And that was after the run of 90s movies, but before the Nolan movies. So it set me up for the Nolan movies. And I liked the first one, really hated the second one. It was a horrible, horrible movie. And was there a third one?
Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, they were horrible. The first one was alright.
Batman Begins.
Yeah, that was a great movie. The second two, no, they can go back to the $2 bin at the supermarket.
The someone with Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Yeah, that was a horrible movie.
I actually thought my biggest gripe for me, like everyone raved about it, and it was so fucking long, and it just kept going. It was like, just fucking end already. Honestly, if they'd chopped about 30 minutes off that film and tightened it up a bit, I personally think it could have been a better film. I thought it was all right for what it was, but it just needed to be tighter. And
It needed a fucking plot. Pardon my French, but it needed a plot. The second one and the third one, Christopher Nolan's Snotfest, needed plots. Someone should have actually hired this amazing person called a script writer, and actually put something. It was just boring.
Here's the thing, though, and I learnt this at university when I was studying film, and clearly Christopher Nolan does not have an understanding of this. There is a difference between a story and a plot. The story is everything. The story from here to here is everything, and the plot is sort of here-ish. Let's use Back to the Future as an example for what I mean. The story is right from when you see him rushing off to get to school on time and right to the very end when he's back at his home. That's all nice. The plot is probably starts around when he bumps into his father in the diner, and the plot wraps up with him being sent back in time, and that's where the plot finishes, but the story continues. Because how he accidentally interfered with how his parents first met, and had to go about getting them back together through the help of the man who invented the time machine in the first place. That's the plot. Yeah. Go.
No, go.
Okay. I see what Maddie's saying in that Batman, it just has a story, one really, really long story, but there's no essential plot development. Things just happen. Okay, Zach.
I like Dark Knight. I was actually one of the few people that actually, when I went and saw Dark Knight Rises, I liked it a little bit better because of one particular scene. In that entire 3 films, they always endeavored to kill the mayor of Gotham. And there's a scene, it goes by really quickly in Dark Knight Rises, where they show the stadium floor like opening up and consuming basically the field falls in, and it basically cuts to the box where the mayor is, and he just kind of goes, "What's going on?" And there's an explosion, and I'm just like, he finally killed the mayor of Gotham, finally. And so for me, I was just like, because then people are like, "Oh, the Joker in Dark Knight, he's so fantastic," and people are like, "Well, Bane's just riding the coattails of the Joker as far as and like all that," and I'm just like, yes, but Bane killed the mayor. All the other villains tried, and they could never endeavor. So, plus,
I have a massive gripe about that whole movie, where as much as I found The Dark Knight to be laborious to watch and lacking a plot, but containing a story and characters, as Ian said. And I mean, Heath Ledger, all credit to him, he did a great job. And the whole movie probably would have been better as an art house piece surrounding the character of the Joker, rather than a blockbuster movie with a plot and related action figures and whatnot. But I found the third one to be, it had all of the earmarks of a really big budget student film. Some of the editing was incredibly bad. The Foley on Bane was appalling. And I was watching something else the other day that suffered from the same ADR mix issues. So it's obviously not just a one-off. Whoever they're outsourcing this work to is terrible. But I just found the whole thing had no direction from the director. It was almost like they just patched all of these moments together on screen, and it was very wooden and two-dimensional. And I found that as much as The Dark Knight wasn't really my favorite movie of all time, and I really didn't have a plot, the third one was a big train wreck where I couldn't find even a slightly redeeming feature about it at all.
It had Batman in it.
But did it? I mean, did it really?
Oh,
It had a big whinger.
Actually, here's an interesting point. When I went and saw this in the cinema, like, there was people that had, I'm assuming it was older brothers taking their younger brothers, and their younger brothers were old enough to be excited at the concept of seeing a Batman film, but probably not old enough to actually be in the cinema. But when the film finished, I thought, to a 12-year-old, that film would have been batshit boring. Because there was, like you say, there was no Batman. There was no, like, Batman moments in it. It was just Bruce Wayne having a whinge about his injured leg. Then there was that one dramatic shot about Batman, with Batman standing on the tower. I would love to see a parody of the part where he's actually climbing up the tower. It's like, my God, this is going to be so dramatic. So much climbing. But when I get there, oh my God. And now I've hurt my throat with that. Has anyone heard from Dave? And now the most famous Batman thing would be Lego. Has anyone seen the Lego Batman film?
No.
It's apparently cutscenes from the game Lego Batman 2 all cobbled together and edited slightly to make it more like a film. I enjoy the Lego style humor very much. I've watched it once or twice. I don't really have anywhere to go with that. I'm just saying, like, the most modern current Batman thing is the Lego.
He quite possibly could have been, and I don't have enough to say about this to back it up, but I have a feeling in my stomach that he was the best character in the Lego movie. Have
Oh,
we all seen the Lego
Batman.
movie?
Yes.
Yes.
I think, and again, I'd have to go through and take notes and cross-reference it with previous Batman canon, but it was almost like they took The Dark Knight Rises or Returns or whatever the heck it's called, and just
Mhm.
parodied the bananas out of his portrayal in that movie, because the whole time he's a whingy, whiny little sook bag who just wants to be there for appearances. It was fantastic, and that to me kind of sums up Bruce Wayne and the Batman, the dichotomy between Bruce Wayne and Batman, because Bruce Wayne's always this whingy, mopey, oh, everything's so hard, my life is such a tragedy, and I'm gonna go save the world.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Yes, I really like the where he's throwing the batarangs to try and push buttons. He's like, then he finally hits. He's like, yes, first time. And just that was generally his attitude towards everything.
Mhm. I liked his when they were putting the submarine together, and basically he's just like grabbing pieces. He's like, I only work in black and sometimes dark gray. Or when he wrote that, or when he rescues Wildstyle and Emmett, and they basically just like, I wrote this song for you, babe, and it's like darkness and death or something. And he's just like, and it's just like this like grunge rock anthem, and they're just like, ah, I'm so deep.
So, where do you think that the current generation are going to see Batman in the grand scheme of the Marvel Universe, the Star Wars reboots, the Ben 10s of the world? Does Batman have a place with the younger kids, or has he been relegated to the adults?
I think he's been relegated to the adults because the way we've seen like the Nolan films, the way they definitely did not appeal to children. They had certain things that would appeal to kids. It's Batman. I mean, you show a kid a picture of you could show a kid a Batman comic that they know nothing about, and they see it's Batman, and they want it because Batman is the coolest thing ever. So there's that, but at the same time, I think that the way we're going to see it is Batman is going to be more or less oriented towards people of our age demographic, like their early to late 20s, early to late 30s, like early 20s to like mid to late 30s, because we're old enough to remember Batman growing up, like the Burton films or the animated series, or even, as Ian was saying earlier, the Adam West series. And so we kind of fit the nostalgia bracket. That we'll watch it because we want to see what's different. Whereas more adults will watch it like, oh, I never watched Batman as a kid. And they'll watch it because, like Gotham, it's a crime drama set in a superhero universe.
I
Whereas,
definitely think I fall into that category.
Yeah. Or kids will have like Lego Batman, and some of the more humorous takes on Batman. And of course, there'll still be the comics, but those are kind of a niche category. So
I find it's watching kids at, say, Target or Kmart when the last two, well, especially more like the Dark Knight came out, running around with their little box sets of, Dark Knight action figures, and they're 6 and 7 years old, thinking to myself, really? Really? Are they responding to some sort of other stimuli that I'm not aware of, or did their parents let them sit down and watch this brutal, sadistic movie and then charge out and buy a plastic representation of both the protagonist and the antagonist for this rather messed up series of visual images that they just sat through? Or is it, like you said, simply it's Batman? and that's
Yeah.
all they care about. They don't make an association between the actor on the packaging and
Hmm.
the Batman. It's Batman. You just buy it. Same as you buy a 2 or 3 year old a Batman costume. It looks more like the early '60s TV show, but it's Batman.
Right. And I mean, even now, like, I guess the most famous pop like cultural thing involving him in Batman was Bat Kid, the kid with cancer, who basically they shut down the entire city block so that way this kid could be Batman. And nothing against it. I think that is one of the most wonderful things to do for a kid who is sick, who loves Batman. And that this might be the last time he actually gets to enjoy something like that because of his illness. And to actually do that and basically shut down the city and basically have the kid run around with Batman, like fighting these villains. I think that's also what it's slowly going to become. Is that it becomes like superheroes for charity or something? Is what it's. There's actually a whole group. I know that I keep seeing it occasionally. Is that actually people dress up as different superheroes and they go and clean the windows on the sides of hospitals in the children's ward. And so basically, kids will be like, the nurse will come in and check up on the kids and go like, "Who's that on the window?" And there's Spider-Man with a squeegee going like this, like waving to the kids as as cleaning the window, and the kids are like, "Oh my God, it's Superman and Batman and Spider-Man!" And so there's that. But I definitely think that we're going to see, especially with the release and like popularity that Gotham has received, it's going to be more oriented towards us. That we'll have to. I mean, this isn't the first time Batman took that shift. There was the 1980s comic, The Dark Knight Returns, which has anyone read that?
No.
Okay, I will keep this as spoiler free for you because I believe this is one of those comics that should be read.
Hmm.
It takes place very similar to Batman Beyond, except it's 30 years into the future. Batman has retired. The world has moved on without Batman. In fact, we actually see an older, like elderly Bruce Wayne talking with Superman, and it's this great scene where he says, "I'm actually going to have." He's like, "I'm having lunch with Clark tomorrow," and then it cuts to this scene where Bruce is like sitting by the car like this, and you see Clark standing in the field like, "Isn't this wonderful, Bruce?" And so we see Superman standing there. The only difference is he has a streak of gray hair. That's the only difference in Superman in 30 years. We also see Green Arrow, who is a cynic and a communist and hates everything and has become kind of a recluse. But it's definitely it took the camp, writing off of the camp, and some of the comics were very lighthearted up to that point. But this took the idea of like, okay, let's turn Batman into a gritty, brooding old man, and basically turn the world into a world full of punks and super criminals, like not the kind of like the Jokers and Mr. Freeze of the world, but like super criminals that were hopped up on drugs and had all kinds of like cyberware added to their bodies so they could lift cars and like hack into phone lines by just like walking into a telephone booth. And so it's basically all that whole city falling apart around him, and this 80-year-old, like 60, 70, maybe 80-year-old Bruce Wayne sitting there as this teenage girl is pretending to be Robin fighting crime, and he basically just goes, I think he saves her, and he basically just goes, "Well, this city's screwed up enough as it is. Yeah, time to come out of retirement." And he basically wages a one bat war on the criminals of the city. And they did bring back the Joker, and they made him genuinely terrifying, very genuinely terrifying, because Joker's up for parole. and they put him on a live TV show because the doctor who said, "Oh, he should be on parole," put him up on this TV show to show how cured he is. And long story short, he laughing gasses the entire audience. And the comic is gloriously dark, but it's at the same time it's dark because it's the idea of, okay, Gotham was never a friendly place to begin with. Let's take it one step further. There was a sequel released in 2000. Don't read that. It basically takes the original 1980s comic, throws it in a trash bin, lights it on fire, and then basically dances around its corpse. Another really good Batman comic, just while I'm thinking about this, is The Killing Joke, which was the Joker basically escapes from Arkham and runs amok. But yeah, so just back to the original point that this isn't the first time we've seen Batman shift towards a different audience. It's just that it shifted towards an adult audience with that, which then inspired Tim Burton to make the Tim Burton Batman films. And then an offshoot of that was the animated series, and that allowed Batman to become for kids again, but basically be more of a treat kids like they're actual people series. Which is why you should definitely see it, Maddie, because there is an episode that is not about Batman. It is literally Batman is just trying to solve a very simple robbery that ends up linking one of the crime families in Gotham to this priest, and you basically find out, and there's this elaborate flashback sequence that it turns out the priest and the head of the crime family were best friends as kids. And that essentially, because one of them thought the other had died, it shows how their lives grew apart, and how the priest never forgot, and how the crime boss's son, is a druggie, hooked on his own father's drugs, and how the priest is basically trying to get the kid clean and sober and show the father the error of his ways. And there's maybe Batman's just kind of a side note to the episode. And so it actually showed kids, look here, kids, not all villains are super. They're sometimes just people that had a hard life, or maybe made the bad decision somewhere earlier on. But definitely, we're going to see a rash of more adult-themed and oriented Batman.
Can I just say, just speaking of graphic novels in general, one of my early memories of comic books is I had an old... It'd be worthless now because it was black and white, and I colored it in with pencils and crayons. But it was a black and white Batman comic, and it was. I don't think they'd really figured out comic books back then. It was unbelievably wordy. I might as well have been reading a novel. It's just it had panels, little picture panes and stuff, and a story and whatnot. It was the guy in the volcano, because a friend years ago read it through, and then one of those episodes came up in the animated series, oh my god, that's the guy from that. And that's fun, because as a child, I liked the idea of comic books, but I didn't actually, of them as general and owning them, but I never actually read them. It wasn't until I was in my teens that I actually started reading comic books. Then... Because I'm always preferred the Marvel universe over the DC universe, but there was a Batman series. It was, and I missed the last one of it because it must have just been that popular. It was Batman Contagion, and this is when all of those types of movies were coming out at the cinema, like Outbreak, and those types of ones. And it was basically the Batman version of Outbreak, and Robin got the disease. It wasn't Dick Grayson, it was whoever was Robin at the time, caught it and died, and the cliffhanger was Batman holding Robin in his arms dead. I was like, I have to get the next issue, but I couldn't find it anywhere at all. And I have every single issue in that series. I've got, Catwoman, Azrael, Robin, Batman, but I couldn't find the last one. So, unless it was finished as the beginning of a different series and I didn't connect the dots. Go.
Just something really quick. I was actually in a comic book store, or basically they're a large reseller, and basically you can find, if you can't find it there, you probably will. The only place else to look is Amazon. But they actually had a whole bunch of old Batman comics from the 90s, and they were miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Done like one-off stories, like 5-parters. Like there was Batman Gothic, which was a miniseries, and then there's Batman Shaman. And I actually looked them up, and it turns out that DC at a time was actually releasing these basically Batman miniseries comic book arcs, where they were individual stories set in the Batman universe, written by these like really, really prestigious comic book artists and writers from that time, and it was basically their take on the Batman universe. So,
right. Just getting back to what I was saying, there was a crossovers had started becoming big in the 90s with comic books, and everyone was crossing over with everyone, and there was this. It was just a once-off Batman Spider-Man comic. And it wasn't one of those ones, they weren't in alternate realities or alternate universes and they had to go through some magic portal or whatever. It was just, I think it was just called Batman Spider-Man. And it started with Spider-Man hunting down, someone was using pumpkin bombs. It was like, it's the Goblin, I must go and hunt him down, my old nemesis. But it turns out it was the Joker using pumpkin bombs to trick Spider-Man into following him into Gotham City. I don't remember what happened after that, but I do remember it was really, really well done. They all, Batman and Spider-Man, there was fisticuffs probably. Then they got along and then they defeated the Joker and the Green Goblin, or whatever. Then there's another one, and this was a really weird crossover. I thought they're never going to pull this off, which is why I bought it to see how they went about it. That was Batman versus Alien. As in the Ridley Scott, but I was extremely impressed with how well they pulled it off to make it believable within the Batman universe. Extremely well done. I thought it was at the time, anyway. David, who seems to have had a haircut since he was last here.
Good morning. Oh, yes, I suppose I have, haven't I? Hello.
You know. You're the one who had it. Bit uneven at the front here, though.
Well, that's just because I've only just got out of bed.
Right, so what are your earliest memories of the Batman?
Oh, is that today's thing, Batman?
Yes.
Right. Earliest memory of Batman, well, it would be Adam West, wouldn't it? That was what I thought Batman was for the longest time.
Same.
That was, I imagine this was more or less the same in America and Australia. That was on quite a lot. It was one of those programs where you couldn't just go about life and not see it. It would definitely be on at some point. And but that was what I thought. It took me a very long time. I've probably mentioned this before because I'm no expert on superheroes, and it took me quite a while to figure out that these things were from comics. I really didn't know that. I suppose maybe the intro to the Batman TV series should have given me the hint with all the sound effects and so on. Well, not just the intro, the whole thing. But I think it would have been that, and then presumably... Oh, I know. That's my first memory of Batman. My second memory of Batman, which was when I realized that Batman was more than just a TV series. Because, of course, the film comes out, the Tim Burton film comes out, and that's a big deal for people in my class, and there's a certain amount of sticker collecting going on, and I think I got the couple of stickers that I particularly wanted, and then that was more or less me out of it. But I thought that that was, they were making a film of Batman, the television series, starring Adam West, although I didn't go that far. I didn't know who that was. I just thought that was what Batman was. And the moment when I realized that that wasn't the case was when I borrowed the 2 Ghostbusters films from a friend. He had them on VHS, on a single tape, like a professional tape that played them both. But in between the 2, there was this Batman, I want to say black and white cinema short, and it was a sort of an
exact same VHS. Sorry to interrupt.
Say again?
I used to have that exact same VHS.
Oh wow, cool! Oh, and have you mentioned it so far today?
I only just remembered that I used to have it by you mentioning it. I got it because my mum's from England, and I was in England in 1990, and I got it for Christmas of that year.
Great.
It's
Well, there you
all
go.
coming back to me. Yeah.
And so then perhaps you can fill in any details I missed, because am I right in thinking that this Batman short was like an episode from the middle of a serial rather than the first
most
episode
certainly
of a serial?
was.
Yes. And now
It was
I have
serial.
never.
The serial that would have played in the cinema at a matinee between your A film and your B film.
Yes, except the thing is that we were long past that era when this happened, and that was when I learned about that. That was when my parents were like, "Oh yeah, you used to just be able to walk into a film any time, and there'd be different features on, and there'd be backup things, and it was, to my childhood brain, it was just some schmo playing Batman instead of the real Batman, and I'm really not sure why they did that. They should at least have put the first or like an episode of the Ghostbusters cartoon or the first of the serial of Batmans or whatever. But no. So it'd be nice to track that down one day and find out what it actually was. Presumably
It's on DVD.
What, the Batman thing?
The whole thing.
Oh, cool!
I know this because I bought it for my dad for Christmas Christmas a few years ago. So it's there.
What can you tell us about it? Because I'm fascinated in that Batman.
It's terrible. I can tell you it's terrible. The Batman is a black car with a fin on the back. That's basically it. It's more of a crime show. It's a crime show with Batman.
But that is what Batman was.
Yeah, it's a poorly done crime show with a poorly done Batman.
Right. So, but he's more of an actual detective then in this, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see this.
As opposed to, there's some old, I think, is it Dick Tracy from a similar era? No, Sherlock Holmes from a similar, but Sherlock Holmes is actually well done. You watch it and think, oh, I'm watching Sherlock Holmes, not a shitty interpretation of Batman. Whereas your Batman, it's a cloth costume. The cape and cowl is cloth. It's just bad.
Well, I do remember at the time thinking it was bad, but I being a whatever I was, 8-year-old child or whatever it was, I interpreted the reason it was bad as being it was the wrong people and it was in black and white.
That's probably also part of the reason. But I think that was the first time that Batman had been realized in live action ever, so they probably didn't really know what they were doing.
And at that point, that's more or less my entire history of Batman finished, up until the point of, I saw the Tim Burton films about twice each, disliked them one of those times, liked them one of those times, and then nothing until Christopher Nolan and Arkham Asylum, I'm afraid.
Also, what about Lego? Because I was saying the most common Batman thing at the moment seems to be Lego.
Well, what about it? I don't have any Batman Lego. I've got the game.
You have got the game. Have you seen the movie?
The Lego movie?
The Batman Lego movie.
Oh, I didn't think that was out yet. I thought they'd only just announced it.
No. There's what the Batman Lego movie is. It was straight to DVD. All it was the second cutscenes from the second game cobbled together with bits filled in to make it a movie.
Right. I assumed this was what you were talking about. They have just announced in the last couple of days that there is going to be a Lego Movie spin-off movie about the Batman in the Lego Movie. And so that's probably going to be really good.
Probably, because as Maddie was saying earlier, the Batman in the Lego Movie is like a parody of the Christopher Nolan. What's the actor's name? Christian Bale. Like a parody of the Christian Bale's interpretation of Batman, how he's just a constant whinger.
Mm-hmm.
And can't get anything done unless he's
and
Batman.
It was hailed by many as the best cinematic Batman so far. So for him to get his own film is going to be a treat.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the Lego Batman is hailed as the best Batman so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to what I think is a little bit embarrassing for Warner Brothers. Is that so far is the closest that they've got to a Justice League film. Having the characters in, and there is Justice League characters in the Batman Lego movie that was the cutscenes.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And I really don't think the Justice League movie they've got planned is going to do terribly well.
No, it feels a little bit sort of
rushed. We need to catch up with Marvel.
Yeah. Maybe their best bet would have been, instead of trying to jump on the bandwagon, it would have been to wait until Marvel had finished, and there was a gap, and then fill that gap.
That would have been a good idea. I'm just watching an animated GIF here of Luke Skywalker kicking a soldier in the head, and it's obviously not connecting.
But missing, yes.
But the soldier's like, oh. Anyway, sorry,
I know the animated GIF, and
yeah. Sorry, that was.
And I'm glad you were watching it instead of doing the podcast.
Yeah, sorry, I'm scrolling down my Google Plus feed. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, getting on to the most recent Batman, the most
your
recent.
Podcast, do what you want.
And this particular actor has already portrayed a superhero, a Marvel superhero, and there's a TV series of that superhero coming out, I think, later this year or next year. And that is
yes.
Ben Affleck. What
Yes.
do we think so far?
Initial trepidation and gradual acceptance, and then what was it he did the other day that was interesting? Oh yes, it's Ben Affleck. The other day surprised everyone by turning out to have proper, like advanced education in sort of Middle Eastern studies or something, and did a speech about how unfair it is to be afraid of Muslims because of, a couple of them being involved in 9/11 or whatever it was, and it just was this unexpectedly intelligent and sincere thing for him to say, and I think it was sort of the latest in a line of people going, yeah, he's all right, Ben Affleck. This might be, we might want to see him be Batman actually, even though that's nothing to do with Batman. I think it was just this, because when it was first announced as Ben Affleck, there was this, I don't even know why, but there was this response of like, oh yeah, but he's not a proper actor or anything, and then the pushback was like, no, he's a good director, and he's been good in this, and he was good in that. I guess it was just because he was in a couple of really bad things,
like Daredevil.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Have we all seen the picture of him in the suit standing next to the black Batmobile, and it's a black and white picture?
Yeah.
As one of the commenters pointed out, he's got the jawline for it.
Yeah, there's. I think the only thing this was certainly what I felt anyway. I don't know if this was the same for everybody, but the only real reason why when they announced who was playing Batman there was this, oh really, is the fact that Man of Steel kind of presented itself in a way that not seamlessly and not successfully, but presented itself in a way that was sort of this kind of fits into the kind of universe that the Nolan films were in, and those films ended on essentially the appointment of a new Batman, and for it not to be him in this makes you feel. I guess it wasn't so much, oh, we've been robbed of something good, although it would have been good. It was more that, like, so this is how the Marvel films, okay, they're obviously trying to battle the Marvel films, and the Marvel films are very carefully directed to be a single series. You know, we don't suddenly have a different actor playing Thor in Avengers 2. It's carefully constructed. And so this was kind of the moment where it was like, no, we're not doing that. We're not carefully constructing ours. Even though, of course, the current DC films and so on do not fit together with the Nolan ones, the fact that I guess they could have done was oh, okay, now we know that moment. And so that took a moment of getting used to, because I can't remember his name, but that guy from the third Dark Knight, it would be really good to see him get his own Batman film.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes.
That's the name of the actor.
Yes.
But wouldn't that be probably a Nightwing film, if you want to get really technical?
That'd be cool.
That'd be great.
But also, as you were saying, the Marvel films are very carefully constructed, and now it's looking like they're going to strike up a deal so we get Spider-Man in the Avengers 3, I think.
Yeah.
And it'll actually be Andrew Garfield.
Yes,
Well, nice.
it would be. I would have a similar moment. I would have a similar moment of disconnect if it turned out to be not Andrew Garfield.
Right.
Even though there's a lot of criticism of Andrew Garfield, none of it comes from me. I like him, and just from I just feel like we're in this is the world we're in now, where the same actor can play the character across the board, and that would feel more sensible.
And I think the DC approach, I think the Arrow and the Flash from the TV series will be the ones in the Justice League films, because that's the ones the public is familiar with. Because everyone knows that he's the Arrow, the Green Arrow. Everyone knows that he's the Flash. So there we go. And I think they're not going to have the Green Lantern at all. Just forget about him for the minute. And there's some speculation recently. Did Aquaman, in the Man of Steel, where he fell in the water and he's doing the obvious, Christianity symbolism, Jesus symbolism, did Aquaman save him from that? From that moment? Apparently they're going to try and link that together in the next film.
Oh, okay. And is the next film Batman vs Superman, or another next film?
No, that one, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Okay, so Batman v Superman is now revealing itself to be just the name of what is in fact a Justice League film.
What is going to be the prequel to a Justice League film?
Right.
Personally, I think they're going about it all wrong. I think they should have had one more Man of Steel film, introduced Batman in that, and then had a Batman Superman film, and then done whatever they wanted.
Well, I agree with that, but something tells me that is what we're getting. I'm guessing that Batman v Superman is going to serve as an introduction of the new Batman. Because to just drop him in, this is kind of an unpopular opinion, because among superhero fans, there's this general tendency to think that you shouldn't, or we're now sick of origin stories in our superhero films, and that's a very sensible argument, and there are very sensible arguments I've read about it. The problem is that when you don't have them, in my opinion anyway, you get this kind of disconnection, and the time we've seen that the most, to me, is the fact that we don't have a current Avengers movies Hulk origin film. But we do have two other Hulks with origin films, sort of. The second one has like a montage at the beginning. So you've got Ang Lee's Hulk is its own thing. That doesn't connect to anything. Then you've got the wasn't that Christian Bale as well? No, it was the chap from Fight Club, wasn't it? The
Edward Norton.
Yeah, his Hulk. Again, kind of its own thing, and the argument, I guess, could be made that that's meant to be the Avengers movie's Hulk, but it isn't, especially given how popular the actor is and how specifically he is the guy now. So what happens is you get the Avengers, and he just kind of appears in it, and the film quite reasonably and rightly assumes you know what the Incredible Hulk is and what he's going to do, and teases it for a long time. But it does mean that we now have the second Hulk movie floating about, kind of wanting to be the start of a franchise, not being, but the franchise exists, it just didn't start with that. And that's weird to me. I think when in a film series where you do have a Thor movie and a Captain America movie, both of whom are much less popular in the team than, as far as I'm aware, than the Hulk, than this version of the Hulk anyway, played by that guy. It seems odd to me that doesn't have a film. So I'm hoping that it won't seem odd that this new Batman just comes out of nowhere. You know?
Yeah, right. Just getting on to the Incredible Hulk. The Edward Norton film is canon with the Avengers.
Really?
Because it has a cameo from Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr. And they mentioned the super soldier serum, referencing Captain America.
Right, there we are then.
I know what happened, though. The director originally wanted Mark Ruffalo, who was to portray Bruce Banner in the Avengers. At the time, Marvel was not owned by Disney. And the Marvel...
I've lost you, Ian. Is there anyone else?
I think we've lost him.
Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Ian, if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Everybody panic.
Well, if he's in charge of the broadcast, then that probably means this won't go into it. But
No,
we
it's
don't know
still
that, so...
Yeah.
Yeah?
This actually happened. This actually happened before you showed up, and it was just me and Maddie talking for about 5 minutes.
Okay, well, hello viewers, we're still here.
It still rolls.
Does anyone else know what? Because he was telling me the thing about the Hulk. Do you know about that?
Not a clue.
Yes, they actually do. From what I do remember from the Edward Norton movie, I don't know the exact story with the whole studio thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll have to fill that in. But they do actually. That is meant to be connected. It is like heavily meant to be connected. In fact, at the very end, when Tony Stark doesn't just show up, he says, "We're forming a team." Specifically, he doesn't name drop the Avengers, but he basically he drops the concept.
Yeah.
And so everyone was just like, what is he talking about? Like, is he talking about, like, what team? What team? And so after that whole thing happened at the end of the Hulk movie, that's when the rumors started flying about, is there going to be an Avengers movie? Like, is there going to be an Avengers movie? And they're like, no, there can't be an actual movie based on that, just because he showed up and was propositioning the Hulk to join this initiative.
And was this before the Iron Man movie? I can't remember now.
After.
Right, okay, so we'd had the Samuel L. Jackson reveal, so it was all starting to come together. Okay. Well, then that's sort of a shame, I think, because Mark Ruffalo is so good and so liked that for him not to be in his own film seems like he and the franchise is cheated of that.
Ian just messaged me on Skype saying that the story that he was relaying was that at the time the Marvel executives considered Edward Norton to be more famous, and therefore they went for the superstar cash-in, whereas had they have gone with the original choice of the director, there would have been a follow-through of continuity.
Is that right? They already had Mark Ruffalo down
And then
Back
they
then?
switched gears, yeah.
Weird. And then I'm guessing that Edward Norton turned down Avengers, so they went back to Mark.
Probably.
How
But
strange.
or he might have had something. I think there was another movie that was released in the same time as the Avengers movie, but he was signed on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, and plus also Joss Whedon had a little bit more directorial power when it came to what he was doing, because he was writing on that I created Firefly, Buffy, and Angel, and directed Serenity vibe. So he's just like, I know what I'm doing, people.
Yeah. Well, right. Well, in that case, I have to put Hulk back on my my list because I'm rewatching the Marvel sort of Wave 1 films because I never got round to seeing any of the second lot. I've not seen any of the 2 films yet, or Guardians, and it's probably about time I got on that. So I started watching them through again on Netflix, and I guess I've got the Hulk DVD somewhere, so I guess I'll have to put that on as well. And what I am finding is, sorry about this, Captain America fans, but I didn't enjoy that film at all this time round, Captain America. I thought it was
The origin story.
Well, I just thought it was a daisy chain of cliches, and none of the good stuff they could have done.
Wait till you see Winter Soldier, because Winter Soldier basically kind of takes that whole like, basically they go like, yeah, you remember all that good stuff. You all remember that stuff from Captain America, right? Yes? Well, we're actually going to follow the logical conclusion to that story.
Okay.
And they actually address, out of all the film, because the subsequent 3 movies that came out after the Avengers, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, and then Captain America Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3 tried to follow the Avengers, basically by tying its events in.
Yes,
Winter Soldier...
I got it wrong. I did see Iron Man 2 and 3. So.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right, but yeah, carry on.
But Winter Soldier actually is the better of those 2 that actually addresses the Avengers, not so much in what happened, but in the themes that they addressed.
Yeah.
And also, it's definitely a bit more set in a present-day global state of mind when it comes to espionage and superhero-ing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
By all accounts, that's a good one. So I'm looking forward to that.
And Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the funniest movies I've seen all year.
Well, with Guardians of the Galaxy, basically what happened there, and the reason I haven't seen it, is that when it came out, and there was, as you say, there was all the buzz about how great it was and how it was so funny, and it was all this. And I think that we just sort of... We'd reached that point where you just go, there's got to be something more in life than just watching all the superhero films, And we kind of went. There was this weariness, and we just didn't get round to it. And the more we heard about it, and the more you kind of go like, he just says I am Groot all the time, and it's really funny. I can't be bothered. But then, so what we did was we went, hang on, this is ridiculous. This is silly. We need to see this film because everyone genuinely says it's good. We were listening to a couple of friends of mine do a podcast called Schizopolitan. Everybody go and listen to it. It's good. And they were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, and they really explained, without spoilers,